and lucky, exactly, and lucky the guys who are processing the videos, they will always cut out that part. So
Yeah, exactly.
that's
Great
I
stuff.
mean, exactly. Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode where we'll be talking about the mastery of sales or the art of sales. And today I'm actually here with another industry veteran. That's Jos Jacobs. Hi, Jacobs. Hi. Okay, I'll start again. Sorry. I'll start again.
No worries, no worries.
Okay. Okay.
That's only better. You need to make a blooper reel at the end.
Yeah. Actually, I should because that will be the most watched one. I'm pretty sure, right?
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
Go on.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Art of Mastering Sales, which I think is one of the most important skills that everyone should learn in their life sooner or later. And the sooner it is, the better for all of us. And today I'm here with Jos Jacobs. Hi, Jos. Nice to have you
Hi
here.
there, Augie. Thank you for
So
having me.
another industry veteran, and for those of the people here watching who don't know you, most probably they're going to go on LinkedIn and they're going to check that you have, I counted more than 10 years of experience in sales and business development roles. And I've seen very steep career progression, and it feels like you've went through the whole path of like business development and then like account executive for strategic customers, for enterprise and so on. So I'm very excited about all the things that we are going to learn from you. And maybe one thing that, because when we talk about sales, I always talk about personal development and the strive to grow, to develop yourself. And apparently your career path is showing that you are going exactly in that direction, like always kind of going to the next level. So can you tell us a little bit more about kind of, I mean, apparently you could be a salesperson in a particular position and just be on that position for a couple of years, but you are always like going for the next level. So can you explain kind of the
Yeah.
philosophy behind that growth in sales?
Ooh. Yes, I can. There's
Okay.
multiple parts involved, most likely, because on one hand, I guess ego is involved. Like if you like doing something, you want to improve yourself. It's about affirmation, confirmation from your peers, hitting targets, etc. I think personality-wise, sales fits quite good with me. Like I thrive with that pressure and/or external factors and goal setting. At the same time, uh, that probably motivates also to go the extra mile,
Okay.
and in combination with curiosity, breeds an environment where you keep on learning. So it's not about it's never good enough.
Yep.
It's also about like seeking a challenge and seeking to challenge yourself. Like I know a lot of people who've done extremely well, probably a lot better than me, might even be a lot better than sales than me in a particular role, and they choose to specifically stay there because it's their comfort zone, because they know they're doing well, etc. And there's nothing wrong with that. But no, I made some lateral steps, um, which just were also intellectually challenging. I just wanted to learn more and become better in the end. Because in that
Got it.
sense, Jesus, I don't know why I'm quoting someone, but knowledge is power.
Got it. Okay. Well, I mean, one thing that you said really got my attention, which was you're saying that your personality is maybe like the right one for sales. And I mean, I think it's the same with entrepreneurship. You could always debate: is someone born to be a salesperson, or can they learn it? So, what your perspective on that? Can anyone be a salesperson, or is it like
Yes. No.
okay?
I think everybody can be a salesperson, but it's most likely depending on how far it could be from your comfort zone. Like regardless of your background, regardless of study, I've seen people coming in after a short or studies in philosophy or in ABC. It doesn't really matter. Like in that sense, for me, what I mean with that is in sales, I'm extroverted. Like when I'm with people, I like people. I like puzzles. I like helping companies, peoples, etc. And I'm what you could maybe call a natural presenter. So I don't mind that
I
pressure
can
of
confirm that actually because we worked. One thing William says we worked a lot of time together at Salesforce,
That's
right?
true.
So
That's true.
yeah.
That's true. No, so I don't have any trouble with that. And again, what I said, I like goals and I like a target. If somebody tells me I cannot do something, my first reaction is say, okay, let's see. Okay, so I
Okay.
cannot do this. And maybe that's why I was a problem child. No, I'm joking. But it's. I've met a lot of people because, for instance, just as a small detour there, I've been during university. I was started studying marketing,
Yeah.
and I studied with brilliant people. But there were just a lot that were like, I just don't want to go into sales because I don't want that pressure.
Okay.
That's just not something that makes me relax. That's not something that gets the best out of me. Uh, so obviously, dealing with sales cycles on a monthly, quarterly, or whateverly basis,
Yeah.
there's targets, and in the end, you're gonna be evaluated on targets and performance.
Yeah.
So that is definitely something that you need to be comfortable with, or open to learn that skill. Um, and then adding to that, and I know I'm a rambler, so sorry for that. Dealing with rejection,
Yeah.
because I can tell you, I was my earliest days, my earliest baby steps in sales was basically call center sales. So literally, like calling people while they're starting dinner, and then trying like um and the rejection rate is just high. Like nobody likes it when you're cold. And I was working for a company that was selling at that time, what was it, CDs and teaching material for children, but the name of the company was Children's Pleasure,
Wow.
falsely, or let's say the translation doesn't really work in English, but it was from Dutch, right?
Okay.
And you can imagine when I call parents around dinner time, like, "Hi, this is Josh from Children's Pleasure. Do you have a minute?" So the rejection rate there was quite high. No,
I
but
understand why.
yeah, me too. But no, but to that sense, and I think a lot of people are just like, look, I like marketing or finance or numbers or this, and working in sales is definitely a place where it's a lot of uncertainty, and the
Hmm.
art of sales in sales cycles or projects or whatever is to decrease that uncertainty to increase the likelihood of a job well done, project or service or whatever. And that uncertainty is just in general what people psychologically avoid. So people looking to that motivates them. um, that is something that can help you. But to your point,
Yeah.
it's not rocket science. So yeah, you can have as a, let's say, natural charmer, storyteller, etc. There are some pros and cons for that, but it depends on the audience. And then you have the people who are more quiet, more in the background, maybe more thinking, but they can also be brilliant salespeople. It's in the end, it's more about like find your own style, but very much planning and process.
Planning and process. Okay. So what do you mean by that? Like, can you give us an example of
Yeah.
what process you will have? Yeah.
Well,
Or
that's
even,
for
yeah.
instance the no, no,
Yeah.
no worries, no worries. But that's for instance the thing, right? Even when I'm talking about those baby steps, and then later on, I worked also in direct sales in a phone store. Larger companies or corporates, or even smaller startups, etc., they will most likely start working on their vision of what they're selling, the product, what they're selling, and then a script, and then
Yeah.
like what is the sales process. So in that sense, once you have a clear product market vision, go to market, etc., the salespeople are basically then, well, either whether it's inbound, outbound, but let's say I'm calling you like, hi there, is this Oggy? I'm Jos, I'm from company X. Okay, like, are you interested in yada, 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 whatever it is? But from there, also from research and sales, there's specific stages through which sales process goes.
Hmm.
Or let's say a customer journey in the
Yeah.
end. And then that's something you can learn, and that's something you can basically hone your skills in terms of listening, active listening, and actually knowing like, hey, where is this project for this particular prospect, so hopefully a customer in the future, where are they in their decision making process or in their journey.
Hmm.
And That's something you can learn.
Yeah, got it. So maybe one thing that, like, if I can bring you back to the children's
Yeah,
pleasure
sorry.
pleasure stage of your life, right? Because
I'd rather not, but
well, I mean, yeah, hopefully, I mean, after the stellar career you've had, hopefully, maybe at least you return as a sales director or something. But um, so, I mean, I also kind of, I don't know actually how many people know that, but one of my first jobs was selling mobile phones and SIM cards, right? So, uh,
yeah, I got that. I got that.
yeah, and it is a tough job because, especially in these cases, I mean, nowadays everyone has a SIM card, everyone has a mobile phone. So when you approach people, I was working at a shopping mall, and like people went out to, I don't know, watch some movie and get some popcorn, and you were like, hey, do you know that you could be saving more on your plan and
Hmm.
so on, right? But the thing is, I mean, apparently we've seen the world of enterprise sales, and it's a little bit different
Hmm.
game there because
Yeah,
it's all about decision making, decision papers, business cases, and so on. But
yeah.
are you saying, or would you recommend to someone who has totally no experience in sale, should they go through this hard schooling of, is it children's pleasure? Is it mobile phone SIM
Ah,
cards? Like getting a lot of rejection, but
um,
like, are you saying it's necessary so that later you could be better at the enterprise one?
I would say it's not definitely necessary also because let's say on the enterprise level, depending on what role you have, right? Because in an
Yeah.
enterprise corporate, let's say for one account team, for one salesperson, there is a multitude of different supporting roles. But let's say you want to be the main salesperson, often then also versus die-hard sales, let's say direct sales, person to person, face to face convincing, put out your Chialdini, which is a researcher on persuasion and all the tactics, yada
Yeah.
yada yada. You're much more of a relationship manager and a project manager.
Mhm.
So but for instance, when you start out in sales, I think what for me was most baffling, like before I got into corporate sales, I did these various sales jobs, and also I worked in hospitality, so restaurants, pubs, etc., for a long time. And it's more for those people that actually have experience in these kind of fields, and then I mean direct sales, like you're the person who stands at a train station, and then
Yeah.
their job is to interrupt a person's journey from A to B and to get them to sign on the spot.
Yeah.
That's tough. That's tough. Or selling those mobile phones, which I did as well.
Yeah.
It can be tough, and it's direct. It's face to face. So you get so much experience from face to face selling where you cannot hide behind. I don't know, let's say I do this, and then I'm like, you cannot see me, or whatever, or whatever, or whatever. You cannot hide behind a big name. No, it's you in that moment with that person, and that definitely helps with soft skills.
Yeah.
Just the knowledge about human behavior and interpersonal behavior, which I think is can definitely help. But also jobs like recruitment, etc.
Mhm.
Like when I started in corporate sales, as like most entry level jobs are around business development, which that basically means is you support a team. The one I was talking before, who's the project manager, main relationship manager for a big company or whatever, and
Yeah.
you find openings for them. You set up meetings for them, which often for a lot of companies translates to you need to make 80 calls a day.
Yeah.
And no, but like let's
Right.
say, or you need to at least set up this many meetings, and there is where handling rejection well, but
Yeah.
also soft skills, because whether it's by phone or on the street, you only have one first impression, and that one first impression, that's I think it's more a message for the people who have experience in the other jobs that I was talking about, that they might underestimate how well they might fit in sales technology or in our industry, which could open up a very maybe more lucrative or different career path than they thought.
Got it. And I mean, because you mentioned several times dealing with rejection, and
Yeah.
like, I just want to provoke here a little bit with, I mean, some people are saying always be closing, right? And then there again, we're also facing rejection.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, I mean, what, like, can you give us a an advice, or I mean, I even know like some of the other gurus are saying always try one more time because maybe next time you sell, right? So
Exactly.
what is your take on that? Till when should we be pushing the sale? And till when should we, and from what moment are we saying, well, actually, it is a no. I have to accept it. It's rejection. Thank you very much. I'll go to the next client.
Yeah, fair. Well, that's difficult, right? Because let's say the corporate sales game is what we call complex solution selling or value-based selling or etc. These are often bigger projects with multiple solutions, many stakeholders involved. So that adds a lot of nuances and variables to the equation to manage. But let's say when we go back, not to children's pleasure, dear God, no. Let's go back to your SIM card or your telephone one.
Yeah.
But that's basically selling on the spot. Now, at first, most likely, the majority of all the people will try to avoid looking you in the eyes because they're like, if our eyes connect, I'm sure he's gonna try to sell something to me. So it's more
Yeah.
that like everybody's just trying to avoid you. I was out sitting with my girlfriend having a coffee the other day, and there was this lady. She was also doing street sales, but then even for like uh, what was it, like charity, for charity.
Yeah.
So basically for the
Of
poor
course.
children, for the dolphins, for the whatever. That's also sales. But then you just notice that like 80 to 90% of the people will just not even acknowledge your existence
Yeah.
because then it follows into them maybe buying something that they weren't planning on buying. So that's what I mean with thick skin
Yeah.
rejection. And why I think it's important, at least in the early steps of a sales career, is because chances are, especially in early entrant job titles like business development, you will also like often like just call and nobody picks up or nobody's there or they're like, no, I don't want to talk to you. Like, why would I talk to you? And especially if you're learning and you have not mastered the planning or the process yet, like it can be tough for someone to say, but why, Augie, tell me, why am I talking to you? Why is this interesting for me? What do you actually have to tell me? Right? And then it's like, like it can be fierce.
Yeah.
Or you might be the person who calls someone who is having a very bad day or who has already been called 80 times. So that's what I mean with thick skin. And yeah, I think that helps later on because you focus on what you can control and not on what you cannot control.
And
You
and
just
this
let it go, move on.
and something
Ah,
very interesting you
sorry.
said about the, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, because I'm that's unfortunately my style of storytelling that I figure out I actually haven't answered your question. So when do we push for a sale? Well, in
But
street
you're good
sales,
because I didn't realize that. Yeah.
well, in street sales, so but that's why what the point of what I wanted to make is like it's so different selling person into person, one phone or one SIM
Yeah.
card or one energy contract versus talking to stakeholders from IT, C level, whatever, sales, marketing, service, and then like the difference between me asking you 10 euros a month for a mobile contract versus asking a company millions per year for etc. So that's, but in the end, the first step is not even to push. I think the first step, what a lot of people forget, what I also had to learn to basically make it top of mind, it's the always be closing you refer to. And it's not that you always push for a close, but you need to ask the question because you don't ask the question, let's say, like, okay, so when can we set up a next meeting? Or even when I was working in a phone store as well, like, you need to ask the question at one point, like, do we have a deal? Or do you
Yeah.
actually want to buy? And that's something that's for a lot of people, and that's direct sales. That's why I think they're very good at that because they know how to close a deal. Because if in these kind of jobs, the one you are doing as well, if you
Yeah.
don't perform, you're probably out in a month.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
and that's what I mean. You do at least have a full sales process, and you always ask that question. Now, and then obviously there's a couple of follow-up questions. At the very least, you could ask, why not? Like,
Yeah.
what is holding you back from actually answering? And whether the closing is to have a sales deal or a next meeting depends on what your goal is.
Yeah.
But first, like, are you interested? If not, why not? thank you for sharing. Can we change that? What needs to be done to,
Yeah.
etc. But there is a point where people say no is no, and especially with these bigger, complexer deals, you just have a lot less under control. So
Yeah.
you also just need to know when to back off and not get on the wrong side of
Yeah.
people's or procurement.
So, I mean, exactly because you mentioned procurement. So this thing, when someone looks in the eyes and says no, I think that's kind of maybe what most people are afraid of. But I think that's also maybe the better situation, because at least someone is saying no and you're getting the chance to kind of save it, let's say. But what do we do with, I mean, especially I think bigger corporations will have this typical kind of
Mm.
soft ways to tell you no, such as why don't you fill out like a vendor form, and then we're
Yes,
going to
yes.
call you, or our team is going to discuss and we're going to get back to you, or our whatever directors
Yeah.
need to decide, and so on. And you kind of know whenever this sound, like whenever they say this sentence, you kind of know it's a
Mhm.
no, and later an email is going
Yes.
to, yeah. So what do you do
Yes.
with that?
Yes.
Like, is there any way to revert
Um,
that?
well, then in these more complex situations, right? If a procurement would say that, uh, then I would guess one option could be is you haven't been speaking to the right people.
Yeah.
Because if the decision maker is the one you have a discussion with, you build your business case with, etc., and they support it, well, then it can always be like, look, I don't know, something external happened. Like you really don't have any control over. Like I don't know, a war, a natural disaster, stock problems, blah blah blah. That's something you just cannot control. Um, but if procurement would basically say that, then it depends on all the work you've done before. And that's what I
Yeah.
meant with the planning and the process. Because if you ever come into a situation where procurement or the people who needs to sign or
Yeah.
process your invoice or your order, and they're like, no, but maybe this that, then you should be able to call the person who
Yeah.
you like is high enough to say like, hey, this was not what we discussed. Why?
Yeah.
So that would only for me first be the signals like maybe the way you build up that project, you weren't talking to all the right people. Because
Hmm.
if you would have talked to all the stakeholders involved and they would have given their go, then there's no chance that procurement would say no.
Yeah. Got it. So, okay, I think that that's very helpful. And because you mentioned business cases or like building a case
Mm.
with a client, I mean, I think I don't know if we did any together, but like I know that like we were very good at, calculating and showing the business value to a customer. By the way, we are offering
Yeah.
one training that's on that, like happening
Mm.
end of February. But generally,
Very
up to
good.
what extent are you saying like discussion should be based really on numbers and business value and cases, and up to what it should be the emotional conversation where someone really wants it. I mean, some things like, for example, even I don't know, Zoom license. We know we want to talk to people. It is possible. Apparently, it's going to save time.
Mm.
Apparently, it's going to bring maybe some revenues. But like, do
Mm.
we really need to build a business case, or is it, hey, you want to be connected, get a license, right?
That's actually a very good point because like when I was working in that phone store, I had one colleague and she was able to just sell phones by the color. Oh, you like this pink one? Yeah, you like this pink one? And then whatever. And everybody would basically walk away with whatever she pointed towards. And I was like, and here I am, like going, so what's important for you? Is that the camera? Is that the like and building that whole case, right?
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan, as you noticed, to make it first as simple as possible, to then go to a more complex layer. So in that sense, there's always an emotional component. Look, if you're talking to someone and you really, really dislike each other for some reason, chances of making that deal, especially in direct sales, are gone. I had it one time. I remember that very vividly because, as you probably noticed, I'm somewhat of a jovial person. I like talking, blah blah blah. But I had once like a lady who was coming into the store, and I wanted to renew her contract or sell her a phone contract, yada yada. And we just did not hit it off. Like she was looking me in the eyes like, mate, I already hate you so much just by you making one joke. And I just had to ask another colleague to take over. Like he sold the deal, whatever. Better than to just stand there trying to work while it's not working. So
Yeah.
actually, I admitted my defeat quite fast, saying like, "This is probably not the way you want to do this, right?" Like,
Yeah.
no. Okay, never mind. But so there's always an emotional component. Um, the smaller the company, and the closer, let's say, the owner, because often you then talk to the CEO or owner, who is the entrepreneur. And when it's the entrepreneur's baby, yes, there's a lot of emotion involved. But if you go more and more and more and more and more far in corporate, it becomes more numbers wise, which
Yeah.
doesn't mean that the numbers don't need to add up in the beginning, because in the end, um, the why and why now question, or like in industry jargon, compelling event or urgency, is important. Especially the bigger the deal or the more complex, if it in the end comes to a CFO, they're gonna look at it. They don't care about you. They don't care about me. They're just like, okay, you're asking me for this amount of money, but why?
Yeah.
So you also need to, let's say, build that business case or the ROI to give to the people who, for them to take it to the stakeholders if you don't have access, to explain for them as simple as possible. But look, we now spend, I don't know, 1 million on this. And now this company comes from Jos and Oggy. They're awesome. I don't know why, but they make me laugh. So I have a very good feeling. And on top, instead of 1 million, they say that they can do the same or better for half of the money. Yeah, the easiest example, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay. And then they go like, okay, but what is the change of costs? Or what is the change of this? And then you can add layers of complexity. But first or foremost, like, why do people give money for charities to dolphins? Because a
Yeah.
street vendor will play the guilt card. Oh, so you don't care about these poor animals? Have you ever had a dog? What do you think what would happen if somebody hit that dog or whatever, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, now, it's not to say I would not recommend you calling bigger corporations like, oh, so you
What do you
don't
think
like
will
you don't
happen?
like SaaS, you don't like platforms,
Yeah.
but no, but
But
I
actually,
agree.
yeah, it's funny. It's funny you're saying that because I've seen security solutions are normally. I mean, I've seen very good presentation where they show picture of three different
Mhm.
CEOs and they're saying what's in common. And then the thing is, all of them had to resign because of a cybersecurity attack, right?
Ooh.
So maybe that's a good one too.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, but that like fear appeals. Look,
Yeah.
fear appeals were I use them as well a lot when doing business development, because I was, for instance, talking to bigger retailers and saying like, look, you don't have any online presence. Like, do you still not believe in the internet, or like, have you looked at what happened to this company, this company, this company? It's a fear appeal, but what they in tech sales, I guess, or amongst other, called a burning platform strategy, because basically you're playing on the emotion of fear of missing out, fear, etc. Like, look, it's now or never, and if you're not going to do it now, in 5 years you might be obsolete. Well, then basically COVID came and did that for us,
Yeah.
because then it was like, oh, people cannot buy in stores anymore. Well then, but no. So there's always sort of an emotional component in
Yeah.
relationship management, because in the end, people buy from people. Well, for now, maybe we'll talk about AI later.
You're really guessing my questions today.
No, but it's ROI. It's like in the end, it's always like, what's in it for me?
Yeah.
And whether that is a clean conscience because you gave to charity, or whether that is, look, I'm having this certain job, and if I choose you, then I save money, or maybe I can get a promotion, or this, or this, or this, or this. If the question why is not answered in terms of, in the end, often money,
Yeah.
then why are we talking at all?
Got it. Well, I mean, like I said, you're guessing my questions. My next question would have been talking about AI and all of these fancy topics, right? So, I mean, I think we see it all the time. Like, if you open the social media, there is these videos where someone is talking to a bot and like they don't even recognize it's a bot and whatever, right? I mean, apparently corporates imagine you send the CEO like a recording of your voice, and you're like, well, you're not that important. I couldn't go there, but like listen to my recording and let me know. So I mean, maybe that's like the most difficult case, but like based on your experience with AI, is there any? I mean, first thing I guess like is, do you
Mhm,
project or predict that at some point people will be buying from robots instead of
mhm,
people?
mhm,
And I guess if not, what do you think will be the kind of the ultimate mixture of, like, if we say a salesperson will be supported by AI, so what is this
mhm.
support going to be, and what is still remaining for the salesperson to do?
That's a very good question. Let me answer your own question first.
Yeah.
I talk with banks and whatever, and I call them, and then I get to this voice message robot, whatever, and I don't have patience, so I will be the one who's screaming human, 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 human after 10 seconds because I just don't want to go to 3,000 different. You call a bank, like, can you please provide us your bank details? Then you have to press 20. No, 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 no.
No.
Like, not for me. Also, robotics in that sense can scare people away because it actually makes it less human. And when people want support or when people, etc., they're often looking for a human. Anyways, having that said, AI is super interesting. I think it shook the world definitely when it came aboard, like ChatGTP, etc. When they came. Before that, I was in automation myself. I was the cool kid around the block with let's say APIs, robotics, automation, flows, and on all these business process automation kind of things. And then ChatGTP came along, and it was the talk of town. Now, in that sense, AI wasn't new, but the way and the user interface and the way it was used was very much new for a larger audience. And all of a sudden, it was like accessible for everyone. And that's when it definitely gave a boom. To your point, but this could already be outdated the moment we publish this, right? Like let's say we
We're
would have
relatively quick, but who knows? Yeah.
yeah, no, but who knows? Like, let's say we would have recorded this before the launch of DeepSeek, and I would have said, well, the costs of actually
Yeah.
manufacturing this is too expensive, and then 1 week later, it's like, oh, never mind.
Yeah.
But then, like, it's okay. Let me first state this. I think AI is not as far by a long shot than people give it credit for now. If you look at the amount of mistakes, or also if you look at the amount of, let's say, modeling on the back end, which and this is going to be very boring, sorry, more based on probability analysis and or logistic analysis, regressions, etc., 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 models in terms of likelihood models to come up with the most probable best solution. Um, so I don't think it's as far as people claim it is now. Although I know a lot of people that using it as a support tool because if you learn how to prompt well, which is I think definitely a skill I should invest in more as well. It can support 100%. But I think people give it credit for now a little bit more than it actually can do. At the same time, I think we heavily underestimate where it will be in 5 or maybe 10 years when you would add quantum to it or other stuff. Because, like, if you look at, okay, another boring history lesson, I'm so sorry. If you look at where the invention of the steam train or whatever, like industrial revolution at that point, and then
Yeah.
how that went, and I think, I'm not sure, people that are smarter who will know that there was a researcher who basically was looking at the exponential growth of technological innovation. And then if we remind ourselves that in the 60s, I think the first computer, or maybe 50s, I don't know, was running, and it had a warehouse full of processors and hardware basically feeding that one computer. And now you have these micro chips. Like my phone here is not one time or two times stronger than the PC I had when I was a kid, or my Super Nintendo. This beast here is probably stronger than 100 of those.
Yeah.
So the amount and what chips can do, what machine learning can do, what AI models will learn how to do with these large language models, etc. I think that we underestimate how fast that can go. And then to that point, oh yes, it will definitely. cost people jobs. Also because AI will at one point learn how to do it itself. Like, and but what kind of jobs, what not, what yes.
Yeah.
That could be engineering, that could be coding, that could be, but also support, or that could be whatever. And now let's say in the ultimate futuristic setting, because there's a large gray area in between, and I don't want to say to people, well, this is definitely going to lose their jobs, but it's more that, for instance, when it comes to sales or software sales or
Yeah.
technology sales or PaaS, whatever, I can see, and if this is not yet out there, or I suggest we start working, and that we patent it as fast as possible. But let's say I have my tech stack. I'm a company, and I have a black box where all my tech stack I basically can connect via APIs, or maybe what the future of an API is, or an alternative. And then on the other side, I can basically ask them, okay, this is my setup. How efficient is this, and what could be better, or what could be done? So I can basically, if you would look AI as a black box, I should be able to basically give the variables into the black box, and then let them via APIs, and being able to scan all the information out there, get a direct answer in terms of like, this is your best option to go forward, and this is how to do it, this is how to implement it, blah 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 blah. Now that's very futuristic, but like if you look at a personal level now, how far smart housing is, and also I think sometimes what we forget in Europe, and I haven't been there, but I saw some documentaries, for instance, about Beijing, Tokyo, these kind of
Oh yeah.
cities, and how far they are with certain things. Maybe not with everything, but
Yeah.
that's a different world. Like your
Yes.
groceries will be home the moment you get home, and
Yeah.
and, and all that kind of stuff. So right, so I think in our daily lives, the ChatGTP was a sort of a game changer. People open eyes like,
Yeah.
but I think
Uh,
we underestimate where it might be going. And yes, that will um, delete, if you will,
yeah.
jobs. It will probably also create jobs.
I mean, hopefully, right? Like we always point to how we did it with the last industrial revolution, so hopefully this one, also allows to create
Well,
new
let's say
jobs.
like
Right?
it could also be ugly that basically in 5 years you could say like, let's take two white dudes, one one from Eastern Europe, one from Western Europe. Let them have a conversation about this topic, and go.
Yeah, could be. Let's see, right? But I mean, one because I understood like also from you like you could be doing prompts and so on, like kind of using AI to support your sales
Yeah.
job. But I mean, like have you had already some experiences from the consumer or like from the customer side? Because I mean, if years ago you could like a customer would invite you to tell them about their solution your solutions, right? And you'll be like, oh, we can do this, we can do that. I mean, now a research and a comparison between tools could happen with AI within seconds, right? So
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. Like that's
yeah.
where I can see it going.
Yeah.
Technologically, it's already possible, but
Yeah.
and that's what prompting. That's why you need to be careful, because in the sense of data science, forgive my Spanish or French, shit in is shit out. So
Yeah.
if you do not prompt right, and we're talking about, let's say you're a billion-dollar company and you have your tech stack, which means you might have an ERP, a financial system, blah 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 blah, and then it's like we need a new middleware, or we need a new data lake. What
Yeah.
can we do? Then you definitely want to basically have the right input to get the right output. So technologically, I think it should most likely already be
Yeah.
possible. Um, because to your point, indeed, it would just be like, why would you need to talk to your salesperson or your account executive if AI can basically spot, okay, there was a new hire in this department, and he or she, or Mr. Bot needs this amount of licenses, or this amount of things, or this, or this,
Yeah.
or this, that can all be automated.
Yeah. Got it. Okay, so let's see what the future brings, right? And
let's
maybe
say.
one thing, because in the beginning we were talking about kind of the entire, let's say, career ladder of a salesperson, but I think one
Right.
more interesting thing that we didn't mention is that you've also been through selling all the kind of different types of technology, meaning platforms, applications,
Yes.
infrastructure, and so on. So can you guide
Yes.
us a little bit through the difference? Are there any differences when you're selling different types of technology, kind of?
Yes. Most likely, it starts also obviously with what problem is your solution solving? Where does it come in? So let's say you have a commerce platform that you're selling, or you have a platform or a software solution for service or for marketing or for etc. That obviously um, straight away means like, okay, who is the person I'm talking to? Who do I need to sell it and why? And when you're talking more about infrastructure or platform, you're most likely more going into the direction of IT or developers,
Yeah.
because like you can have the best solutions in the world if they're all like monoliths or silos and they're not communicating with each other. Now what's the point? Because in the end, and that's what I said about business process automation, like in an ideal world, if you make an order somewhere online, like everything is automated towards the point that the invoice and the this and the logistics and supply chain. But in order to do that, all these different solutions or software or platforms, also from different companies, all to need to communicate with each other in the right way. And that's infrastructure. Or let's say a platform, middleware, etc. That's a whole different ballgame. Still, it's important to be able to articulate the business value. Like on one hand, you need to talk to IT to make sure that they're on board and that they also see the value in that, and then they're open to work with it. But in the end, it also comes to a CFO. So it's trickier because on one hand, you need to have IT on board, but you also need to have your business case. Like, what is it going to change
Yeah.
if we have this all streamlined? Because in the end, the CFO is just like, I don't know this name. I have no clue. But why do you want so much money from me, IT or marketing or whatever?
Yeah.
But it's interesting because basically, with infrastructure or whatever, you can talk to almost any department, because almost every department you can basically talk about like, is there any time that you as a person to do your job or your teams to do their job need multiple screens open at the same time, or hoover between different systems, or hoover between different this, or hoover between this or this? If yes, well then let's see if what would it mean if we could streamline that and bring it back
Yeah.
to one screen.
Hmm.
Maybe to simplify it, but it is different because like in the end, it's often IT that needs to be involved.
Hmm. Got it. I mean, that's very helpful, and maybe just because based on the example you just gave, right? And you know that actually when we met, I was supporting or I was helping Salesforce to speak the language of the industry, and I think it was
Yes.
already manufacturing or construction at that stage. But the thing is, what it just described as an example. I mean, it could be for anyone. You don't really need to understand anything about retail or mining so that you can say, "Hey, are you using multiple screens?" So at
No,
what
but it
stage are you
helps.
saying,
It
sorry?
helps.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
helps if you do.
yeah.
Because like let's say, sorry, at what stage? Because I was probably interrupting while you're gonna ask exactly this question.
I was going to ask exactly this question, so please go ahead, Yossi.
No, but like the thing is, and that's the soft skills or the relevancy or and also the authority that you have, because like it's easy to say this, but how is it relevant for a company? But if you can then, for instance, in storytelling, um, storytell or the customer journey that we were talking about and say like, hey, that journey is broken here, broken here, broken here, and with broken we mean there's manual steps, or
Yeah,
basically let's say this could be automated. And in the end of the day, that could be a difference between, for instance, 24 hours when something is delivered to your doorstep. Or it could be with resolution. So let's say my flight has been delayed over this many hours. And then everybody basically comes together at the same point of the airport because everybody is in panic. But then what? and then they might have to go to 16 different systems, and then you also get the payment systems and the this systems and the this systems and the this systems and the this systems. And then it's more like when you know better what is actually happening in industries or is in top of mind, you're able to speak their language and identify their specific problems where this kind of things could be urgent. Because like Alice, it's generic. Like, and then they could be, yeah, sometimes we have these different screens. You're like, okay, is that annoying? Yeah, it's fine. But why? Like, I know, but like, it doesn't say that much, right? So,
Yeah.
it's more that if you know, and obviously I am by no means an industry expert on anything. I would say more that I have somewhat broader knowledge in terms of not being super generic. But it's important to put yourself in the shoes of your customer and in the shoes of your customer's customer. So what is it that they're trying to sell? How does the process look like? And what does satisfaction look like for the end customer?
Yeah.
And then often, I wouldn't say it's logic, but you can define something. Like in retail, etc. It's speed. It's basically like it needs to be speed, it needs to be seamless because it's business to consumer is different than business to business.
Yeah.
But so it definitely helps because, and this is also why, because it helps you get you on the table and it helps you to also talk on the same level with the people that you will be talking to. And if you come inside and you're trying to sell software or whatever, as if you're selling a microwave with generic, like the
Yeah.
compelling events or like values, you're like, man, I'm selling cars. I have no clue what I want to do with your microwave.
Yeah.
But if you can be like, look, hey, that's awesome. You're selling cars. So where are your parts coming from? How are you doing that at the moment? Like, okay, so you have your assembly here, but then you go there, and then it's like, at what point is there actually maybe a disconnect, or how do you handle those logistics? I'm just saying, still, what I'm saying is generic, but you know where I want to go, right? And then
Yeah. Yeah.
if you have that industry specific, then you come in with a plan
Yeah.
because you know what's happening in these industries, and then when you can identify the pains, then
Mm-hmm.
you can go over to a solution. But if you're bringing in a solution where you don't know the pains, yeah, well, here's a
Yeah.
band-aid.
Got it. Got it. Well, that's very helpful, Jos. And maybe one more question, especially for beginners, like the ones who are like just trying to start to sell. I think everyone is a little bit afraid that they don't sound salesy. So, do you have any tips on? I mean, first of all, I guess is it bad to be salesy if eventually you're selling? And then, do you have any tips how someone who is selling could sound less salesy?
It's funny because define salesy. Because the connotation of when you say salesy, it sounds like that sleek hair like this,
The
back
Wolf of
then,
Wall Street
Wolf
salesy,
of
I
Wall
guess.
Street kind of style, right? And that's not what sales is. Like if you don't like, if you want to be, go ahead. I don't think it's very not my style.
Yeah.
So in that sense, what is salesy? Like everybody has their own style. Like I'm quite talkative. I like learning. I like, for instance, preparing PP and knowing everything about the people I've got to talk to, the companies, etc., etc., etc. Other people's are a little bit more laid back, more project minded, or more pragmatic, if you will. So they're it's just more being salesy in our context, I would guess, is more knowing when you should probably shut up. Like, don't go too far, overselling, overpromising, hammering down on focus on on your money that you might be earning versus the actual project, because that's when people on the other hand be like, but dude, you don't care at all.
Yeah.
You have zero interest in my company, in me as a person. You've just shown your true colors, which is sort of like treating me like a foie gras, but stuffing me with your product.
Yeah.
And that's, I think that's salesy, but that is often not what we say Wolf of Wall Street salesy. But
Yeah.
that's what when companies literally get the idea, or people you talk to, that you're actively selling them something, it's not bad if you have identified their need and if the
Yeah.
business case is obvious, etc. Because then they're okay, we can talk about it.
Yeah.
But if you haven't done that, then basically you're just pressing. You're that dude like, no, but man, just the signature here, the seal, the seal. Don't you care about the seals? Like, and then it's like people get uncomfortable.
Yeah. Got it. Okay, that's very helpful. And maybe one more thing. I mean, I feel like we can talk for
Yeah,
hours, so we should definitely make a second
yeah,
episode at some point.
exactly. Yeah, sure,
But
no worries.
or who knows?
Maybe,
Maybe
maybe,
start
maybe,
here.
maybe you cut this down to 5 minutes, and it's just like the
Well,
opening
yeah,
of the seal, seal, seal. Don't you care about dogs? Like,
exactly. Yeah, maybe that's the most important thing we discussed today. But can you think of the most common objection that you're facing or you were facing? I know that 10 years is a lot of objections that you've
yeah,
heard, right? But kind of, or I mean, if it's easier, let's make the top three or whatever. And
yeah,
like, how would I mean? Can you give us an example? How would you go about them?
yeah. I think one very common one, it's always time. And with
Okay.
time, it's like, we're not ready here.
Yeah.
It's chicken and egg. Like, we know we need to do something so that we can save time, but we're not ready to do this while we know that this could save us time. So it's a little bit of a conundrum that you're like, but so we identified everything. But to your point, what you said earlier in the conversation, it's you really need to feel when you get sort of objections, whether they're real objections or they're just trying to sort of politely show you the door, and that differs per culture as well. I can definitely guarantee that in the Netherlands it's quite direct, but for instance, other cultures are a little bit more indirect. This is not the perfect time for us. Thank you. We will take it into consideration. So that's timing. Timing is very important, but it could also be that it's true. So let's say they have another big project. I had one company once, and I think they opened a factory somewhere for a big amount of money. And I was like, okay, of course they're never going to do a project now because they've got that. So that's also valuable information. Like, an objection is often a source of information, and not necessarily a no. Money. Well, it's always money. Like, oh, that's too expensive. And then it also depends on, did you do your job right?
Yeah.
Because if I would say like, well, Augie, having me on a podcast that costs you €5,000 per podcast, you go, ooh, man, that's I don't know, Jos. Like, that AI bot that you talked about could probably do a good job as well. But then if I would be able to say, yeah, but last podcast you had with 20 million views, yada 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 yada, you'd be like, maybe it's worth it. So if you have your business case and your ROI, and if pricing is still an objection, then you need to say, is price the only objection? Yes. But you agree that the return on investment is there? Yes. So why is price an objection? And if it's an objection, can we manage that or no? Like, for what price then would it basically be a no-brainer and would you sign today? Obviously, this is all easy peasy. It doesn't work like this every time, and it's not like go out and every time you get a signature. But often it's price, and most of the times it's price when you give a price too early in the process.
Okay.
With complex selling, because then it's like, because you need to imagine, like, if you as a company or let's say as a person, often they have a couple of questions like, what's in it for us? What does it cost? And can you answer these questions? And if you give everything away in the beginning, they will just think, oh, this might be expensive, but you have no information yourself.
Yeah.
So, because like, well, what does it cost? I don't know. What are your problems? What are you hoping to solve? I still don't know you well enough, Aki. So maybe if we have a conversation, I can understand what you're actually looking for or what your problems are. We can discuss, and then maybe quite early in the process, have a check-in meeting, evaluate, are we on the right track? Well, then it's probably looking to cost this much. Is it worthwhile to move on? Or do we just say good riddance?
Maybe just a clarification question here, Jos, because
Yeah.
I mean, it's a very important topic you're raising here about not mentioning the price too early in the process. But I mean, apparently, as you can imagine, most of the time on the other side, the customer is always like, okay, can you share pricing, price list, an offer, and so on, right?
Yes.
And like, I mean, where do you think we strike a balance so that they also don't start asking themselves, why is Augie hiding the price, right? Like, why is he refusing that? Yeah,
It's like, and this is obviously different per industry, but let's say in SaaS or PaaS or in technology, we talk often about a list price, which is basically like, look, this is the price, you can find it on the website.
yeah,
Like, but I can give you a ballpark figure, but in terms of to get to an estimation, I need information. Like, let's say we have this many people we want with a different work with a different platform, regardless of whatever it is. What can you share? Because this is the minimum I need to give you an estimation that's actually anywhere near where it's realistic. Because else, and
yeah,
also this is something obviously I learned from, because like I'm not omniscient, and I learn from others, right? I think it's always good. I think a professor in university once told me this regarding to research, but it holds for everything. We always stand on each other's shoulders or the shoulders of other, and we learn. So in that sense, striking the balance is like, look, um, we're in the game of sales, consultancy, or selling projects, and a buyer might want to have a price, but they have probably never or will not likely ever do these kind of projects more often. So you, as a seller, are the expert in how these projects go. And you should say, like, look, if you want to have an estimation, that's, of course, that's our goal, to get towards somewhere where we can help each other. But in
yeah.
order to do that, I'm going to show you how we actually work and how we do these projects. So
Mhm.
can you agree with our way of this process, what I earlier mentioned? Then we can get to a good price. You want to have an estimation now? Okay, how many people or how many this, how many that are we talking to? This is list price. That's way too much. Yeah, I told you so. Because I cannot give a price without more information. And if you don't
Yeah,
want to share more information for me in order to understand what you need and why,
yeah.
well then why are we talking?
Got it. Got it. Okay, very useful, Yosin. I think I interrupted you and you were saying the
Ah,
third
no worries.
objection. Yeah. Or
Uh, no,
if
no,
you
no,
have
no,
one,
no
right?
sorries, no sorries, no sorries
If
needed.
not, I can give you a Eastern European objection that most probably, I
Okay,
don't know if
fair.
the
Yeah, yeah,
third
yeah.
one, but so like most of the time you would hear that there is no budget. So it's not like
Yeah,
they're not saying your price is high, right? That's different, right? Like
yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
they're saying, well, we don't have money. So
Yeah, no, it's different. But then also it depends. That is something you want to know as early on as possible.
yeah,
Because if you find it out at the end of your process, it means you forgot to ask the right questions, right? Like if like, because obviously in these kind of things you need to walk a fine line between, is this just something to say to get rid of those salespeople? Is there actually no budget? Why is there no budget? But okay, is there no budget? Why not? What is the priorities then? Doesn't mean a no still. Or maybe, hey, okay, so you're saying you don't have any budget. What if we can actually give you an ROI of this? Or what if you don't have budget now, but we can do this moving forward? Like, it's never a no. But if you're at the end of your, let's say, you have your bottle of champagne ready, and you send your contract out, then you have a meeting, and someone goes like, by the way, we don't have budget. You did something wrong, because that's something basically you want to verify quite early on, to the price point as well. Like, as the same way that they want to know price, we want to know, or the seller wants to know their budget, and that's actually the game where you're talking between, because they want to know a price, but they don't want to pay top price. The salesperson preferably wants to sell the top price.
yeah,
So you're always in between budget and price. But if that's what I say, you get to that meeting where it's like, look, based on all the information that we've now heard, is this correct, Aki? You want to move here with your company? You want to do this? You want to do this? You want to do this? Is that correct? Yes, that's correct. Okay, so we've seen that we can do this. We estimate that this, and this would be your return on investment, business value, whatever.
yeah,
Is that something you can agree upon? Yes.
yeah,
And then I would name a price. You say that's super expensive. Okay, but compared
got
to
it.
what we just discussed and you agreed upon that you were
Yeah,
gonna earn, it's not that much, is it? But that's definitely um, And that's where sales skills do come in. What I said, learning about the process, is that it's not rocket science, but there are, and whether methodology, it's Sandler, MedPick, there's multiple, I'm pretty sure you can share them under the video,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
methodologies that you can use in terms of like what is critical information to acquire in a sales process before you can actually, or make sure that the likelihood of you getting to a point of yes and no is highest. And budget and price. For us, budget is more important if you're on the sales side, and for the other side, it's price. So if you're at the end of a process and they have no budget, you did not do your job really good. And if it's on the beginning, they have no budget, you can say, well, I think we have a really interesting thing for you. And it also depends who you're talking to. Like, are you talking to the head of sales? That's not the CFO. Like, okay, you have no budget for now. Then let's divert the conversation, because maybe the customer of tomorrow, in
Yeah.
your perfect world, what are you missing? And let's say you would have unlimited budget. What were your ideal setup would be? What would
Yeah.
that save you? Where would you go? And then at least you have that information, and you can move forward maybe later, or maybe then with saying like, okay, but if I hear you correctly, Aki, in your ideal world, you would probably earn 5 million more if you strategize or organize this. Yes, that's a lot of money. I think we can actually do that for 1/5 of the money.
Yeah.
So you try to turn it around. Like, obviously, you probably need to slow down the video in terms of how fast I talk. There's no one way to Rome, but an objection is never an objection. It's a source of information.
Got it. Okay, that's worth to pack it in a quote. Great.
It's
Okay,
probably
maybe.
not mine. It's probably someone else who said it.
Well, we can package it as yours until someone
Yeah.
claims it's right.
Fair.
Okay, great. So maybe one last question, because I think I
Sure.
mean I'm also conscious that you took out of your time to share this knowledge. So I also don't want
No
to
worries.
kind of do it too much. But I mean, so generally in the beginning you said it's kind of planning process and so on. So apparently
Mhm.
it will, I guess. I mean, there was another famous saying that something like when motivation is out, or like when the motivation is over, you need to continue with discipline. So do you have any kind of tips? How do we continue through the process? I mean, we've all heard it's a numbers game, which means, I guess, showing up every day, doing your process, reaching out, dealing with the rejection, and so on. So, do you have any tips? How do we stay, I don't know, motivated, disciplined? How do we continue in the game and we don't give up?
That's very good. Like, and that's a very interesting question, because I struggle with this myself as well. I might be laughing now, but oh, I certainly had my moments where I was like, I think I'm an idiot. I'm not sure why, but nothing is coming my way, or you have that feeling like I wouldn't be able to sell a banana to a monkey when they're asking me for it. Um, it is trusting the process in that sense, like making sure that those questions that are important to identify whether a project is actually a project, because often we talk about pipeline, right? So in the end of the day, your performance is evaluated on the amount of money you bring in, whether that's monthly, annually, whatever. And then, so that's the first. And if you're green there, everybody's like, awesome, you're amazing, great stuff. And then they, most of the time, companies or managers look at, okay, how many possible projects are there, and when are you expecting them? Uh, and these are things you can control. The discipline and or the motivation, I think, also actually comes from one, trusting that process, but also being able to take a little step back and not get too desperate.
Hmm.
Because if you're really pushing, 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 or if you have that sort of, let's say, low streak where not everything is going your way, you're having a tough time, it is very important to in that sense keep positive, because it will show. It will show in all your behavior. Like, if you're on a good flow, somehow everything comes your way. You're like a magnet. And when you're on a lower flow, somehow everything you touch doesn't turn into gold, but the opposite. Um, I would first and foremostly also say what for me always has been important, and to to revert back to children's pleasure. Uh, I, you need to also work with solutions. For me, it's personally important. I'm not saying for everybody. Which
Yeah.
solutions that you actually believe in, trust, and that you feel
Hmm.
comfortable representing. That
Got
was
it.
for me like that. That's for me a lot of fun factor. I like the people I work, like the companies I work with, and that brings enough of motivation, and then the rest will follow. Trust the process if you keep on to the process, and definitely speak up. I would say if you have these kind of stuff,
Hmm.
don't don't how do you say this in English? But don't hit the alarm too late. There's peoples in your teams. There's most likely a manager. There's maybe a mentor. There's maybe etc. Don't try to do it all alone because you won't be able to anyways.
Got it. Okay, great. Well, great. Yes, that was very, very, very helpful. Like, I mean, I think I learned a lot. I'm pretty sure that everyone watching will have learned a lot. We even have quotes from you. We have like very practical tips, so that's amazing. Maybe is there anything like any last thing that I guess I didn't ask you, but you think we should have said in this kind of hour? It's a little bit more than an hour conversation.
I would say more for you and for your audience is more in terms of like what would they want to know, or what do they hope to learn, or where is their mind at, what they find interesting. Like let's say we would do it another time, or you invite other guests, because the thing is, for each point that we addressed, you could probably have at least an hour conversation
Yeah.
easily, especially maybe the two of us, but let's say. So it could be interesting to say, like, hey, from all these topics, what would be most interesting for you, or where would you like to have a deep dive? And for the rest, no, this was my first podcast ever. So don't be too harsh on Aki and me. Uh, no,
Well, I'm pretty sure you're going to be a recurring guest. I promise already. So
no, it's what I would say is definitely like if people are interested in learning more about sales, or people are interested in a career in sales, definitely what I my experience is, don't think too long about it, do it, and reach out to people, reach out via LinkedIn, start connecting with people, because um, in the end, doing is at some point you need to take action, and inaction is not progress.
yeah, great. Okay. I think that's actually a very good another quote actually from you, right? That we can close with for today. But I highly appreciate you taking the time for all of these tips, and like being so open about the art of sales, like everything that you've learned through the years, and all of these concrete examples of how to solve different situations. So once again, highly appreciate it. I'm very curious about like what the audience is going to say, and I'm looking forward to our next encounter. Yes.
Amazing. I'm looking forward to hearing from you again, and let's keep in touch. And thanks everybody for listening.